romanto, Mr. Romanto.
Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da. Domo arigato, geek to me radio, da 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 da.
Welcome, geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to another all-new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Jam-packed show today. We'll be talking with David Pepose first about Spencer and Locke Volume 2. We'll then talk with Chris McQuillen all about the upcoming ToyMan Toy Show right here in St. Louis. And then Max on Movies and I discuss Oscars. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek from Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you're driving around St. Louis right now, hearing us on 105.3 FM and 1380 AM, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're streaming us out there in the world via the World Wide Web, thank you so much for finding us there. And of course, if you're hearing this after the fact in the podcast form on Google Play, iTunes, SoundCloud, Podomatic, FM Player, or wherever you get your iTunes and different podcasts from, thank you very much for subscribing there. We are going to jump right into it, a jam-packed show today. We are joined now by David Pepose talking Spencer and Locke, which is like Calvin and Hobbes meets Frank Miller's gritty underworld detective story. David, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. This is I loved it. You sent me the links, and I started looking through it, and just the art, just the way it's written, it kind of draws you right in. It's that gritty noir detective story, and I love the fantastical nature of the Spencer and Locke dynamic being directly with Calvin and Hobbes. Tell me, where did the origin for this idea come about?
So I was a big fan of mashup music, and kind of weird combinations like Nine Inch Nails meets Call Me Maybe. Two very different styles of music, but they're kind of thrown together and they sound really cool and kind of catchy. And I thought, what if somebody tried that with comics? And classic Frank Miller has always been kind of my jam. Daredevil, The Man Without Fear was kind of the book as a kid that made me realize that real writers and artists made these things. And so I really wanted to do something with that as kind of a base. And I thought, what would be the weirdest thing to throw against Frank Miller? And I thought of a lot of ideas, but a lot of them felt very kind of like shock for shock value's sake. It wasn't until I thought of Calvin and Hobbes that, the everything just clicked. I had this kind of idea of this hard-boiled detective. He's really beaten up. He's grinning wildly in the rain, and he's holding a stuffed animal. And I thought, what was that guy's home life like? What was his upbringing? What did it look like? And what draws him to still hold on to his imaginary friend even as an adult? And so really those kind of questions were really irresistible, and I just kind of dove into writing the first issue of Spencer and Locke.
So my first question, has Bill Watterson reached out to you at all with either congratulations or, hey, what are you doing?
No, every time somebody asks me that, I'm always kind of blown away because I'm of the opinion I would be big enough to ever reach Bill's radar. But no, we haven't heard from Bill, but I like to think, I would hope that he would see this book for what it is, which is, not just as a parody, but it's very much a love letter. I consider Bill Watterson and Frank Miller to be really once-in-a-generation talents. They're pioneers and innovators, and they really gave so much to the industry. I consider Spencer and Locke to be me and artist Jorge Santiago Jr. really standing on the shoulders of giants. We are certainly not conceited enough to ever think we could fill their shoes. But we're having a lot of fun just sort of inhabiting that small little overlap of these two gigantic talents.
And we should mention that obviously these are, it says right there on the covers that these are for mature readers because it's a little dark, but it's definitely a lot of fun. What was obviously you must have gotten a good reception for the first volume, because now the second volume is out, which I love, because it starts out with Beetle Bailey now being thrown into the mix as the new bad guy. So was that a natural progression of, hey, we need to bring in more of the funny pages into this world?
Yeah. Well, so the hardest part about promoting our first volume was biting my tongue and not telling anybody that Calvin and Hobbes was just the tip of the iceberg. I've actually had this idea for our Beetle Bailey analog, Roach Riley. He's been in our back pocket even before I approached artist Jorge Santiago Jr. for the project. It just made a logical kind of sense to me. I actually grew up in St. Louis. I was reading the St. Louis Post-Dispatch every day, and I always read the comics section. And that's where I got to know Calvin and Hobbes. But there were all these different characters and all these different strips that lived on the same page. So why wouldn't they live in the same universe? Taking that kind of fable-style approach where they all are in the same world, it really opened up a lot of storytelling opportunities, I think, because there's so many different archetypes that inhabit these comic strips, and so you can find a lot of different cool and fun characters. Beetle Bailey, for us, he's just the tip of the iceberg. We'll be doing our sorts of riffs on Brenda Starr, High and Lois, Marmaduke, Hagar the Horrible, The Family Circus. Those are just a few off the top of my head. But you'll see. We've got a couple more cameos and Easter eggs that we're saving for readers.
That's what I was wondering, if we're going to see Billy, Jeffy, Dolly, and PJ show up as a family of serial killers in the volume 3. I will say, if for whatever reason we blow up our second volume enough to get a whole bunch of other stories, I do have a Family Circus arc in mind. I would love to do something with a Family Circus. I've got plans for them. And so this is all through Action Lab. What part of this was there crowdfunding involved? Did the studio Action Lab, did they just say, hey, you know what, this is great, we're gonna publish this for you? How did the marriage of your ideas, working with Santiago and Smith on this, pair up with Action Lab? Yeah, well,
it's funny. We shopped the original Spencer and Locke all across the comics industry. And, the thing is my first book. It was Jorge's first direct market book. And so, naturally a lot of people didn't even respond at all. We did have one top 5 publisher, though, tell us it was the best pitch that he'd never published. And I wear that as a badge of honor. But Action Lab, it's really to their credit. I think a lot of publishers would have been either too squeamish to publish our work. It deals a lot with very heavy themes of childhood trauma and PTSD and the like, and mental illness and depression. And there are other publishers, I think even less reputable publishers, who would have kind of pushed us even further and tried to get us into exploitation territory, which is something that Jorge and I talked extensively about trying to avoid. Action Lab, I actually emailed them blind. I did not. They were one of the few publishers I didn't know anybody at, but I'd heard about their work with Princeless and Molly Danger and Stray. And so I'll never forget, I had emailed our editor, Dave Dewatch. I stayed late after work one day. My work computer had Adobe Acrobat, so I was able to work on our pitch document. And I remember sending the email and then sort of working on some paperwork that I needed to catch up on. And suddenly, about 20 minutes later, I get an email back from Dave asking, how soon do you think you could finish this book?
Wow.
And that's sort of where the chill goes down your spine, because suddenly the book's not hypothetical anymore. Now you actually have to, pull it off. And in case anybody's wondering, when you have a book that's What If Calvin and Hobbes Grew Up in Sin City, I know how combustible that high concept is. It's very much a high wire act. And so suddenly you're kind of like, oh, we have to deliver this book and we have to stick the landing. But they've been really a fantastic partner to work with. Action Lab has really given us the freedom to tell this story the way that we wanted to. The only questions they ever asked me were, are you going to hit your deadline? That was beyond that. They said, do what you need to do. We trust you. We liked your pitch enough, and we liked sort of the treatment for where you were headed with the rest of the story, that we believe in you guys. And sort of having that latitude kind of call our own shots. I think that's a unique thing in the industry, and I think that was crucial to Spencer and Locke's success.
And you just last weekend did Long Beach Fan Expo, is that correct?
Yeah, Long Beach Comic Expo. It was a great con. I know one of the organizers, Ivan Cohen. He's actually responsible for me being in the comics industry. He worked at DC Comics back when I was in college, knocking on everyone's door to be an editorial intern. And so poor Ivan listened to me call him every 2 weeks for 9 months trying to get in the door. So that was over 10 years ago. But Ivan still remembers that plucky college sophomore asking him for college strips. And he was kind enough to invite me back as a guest.
And you can always... That was... Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that was, it's my first convention of the year, and it's nice to be able to sort of kick off some of the rust. I like to travel all over the country for this book. We have a really rabid and growing fan base, and we always seem to manage to sell a lot of copies, whatever convention we're at. And but yeah, I'm based in Los Angeles now, and so Long Beach is a fairly quick drive for me. And yeah, it was great getting to sort of catch up. We're at the point now where we're catching up with old fans just as much as reaching out to new ones. And that's kind of a cool, surreal place to be in. But I think it just goes to show just how well received our team's work was.
And that was going to be my question, was obviously in an industry like this, when comic books, there's so many of them, and obviously you're competing against the big two. There's the fan, their reaction is really so crucial. And that was going to be my question, is how has the fan base been taking this as you go to these different cons? And you said, you kind of answered my question ahead of time. It's been a mix of new people finding you and people who are just obsessed and love what you've done already.
So I think Spencer and Locke fans are the best fans in the world, and I know I'm biased, but I think the proof is our first volume was nominated for 5 Ringo Awards last year.
Wow.
We were right up there with Tom King and Mr. Miracle and Batman, Elmer Fudd.
Good company to be in.
It's terrific company to be in. It was terrific company to lose to, is what I always like to say. But we were right up there. We were nominated for Best Series, Best Writer, Best Cover Art, Best Colors, and Best Lettering. And I think it just shows, the Ringo Awards are it's a hybrid of fan voting and jury voting. And I think it just speaks to our fan base that they were so vocal and so passionate and so supportive of us, not just for me and Jorge, who, I recognize that as a writer and artist, we're sort of the faces of the book, but the fact that they were even, recognizing our colorist Jason Smith, our letterer Colin Bell, the fact that our entire core creative team was recognized for their work was something that was a very moving but kind of unbelievable thing to experience. So being able to sort of go to the Ringo Awards, a big industry award for my very first book, I felt like the luckiest guy in the room. And it's not because my mother actually wound up crashing the event to surprise me. But, just our fans, they've been so terrific. I think, like you said, it's a crowded marketplace out there. There's so many books going on right now. That's something that they just discussed this weekend at the Comics Pro Summit over in Charlotte. Is even the big two are sort of looking to either scale back or sort of redistribute their energies and where they're going to focus their books. Mm-hmm. And it's just it took a village to kind of build us up. It was the fans, and it was the press, and it was our retailers. I actually have called over 1,000 retailers this month to tell them about our sequel. And almost 201, they've all been incredibly supportive of us and told us how well the first volume sold for them and how they're going to be selling even more for volume 2. And, I was just saying earlier today, we actually found out a fan had gotten a Spencer and Locke tattoo.
Oh, nice.
And that's kind of a very weird pinch me, the simulation is glitching kind of moment. But it just goes to show that, our fans are just so passionate. And I think it's because we try to approach our book with a sense of empathy. I think everybody kind of has moments in their past that have hurt them or memories that they don't like to think about. And that, I think, is kind of the magic of our book, is we're able to sort of tackle these moments with our characters. And if Locke can kind of, endure all these sort of horrible things in his past, but still get up and keep fighting, I think that's a very hopeful and redemptive message that a lot of fans have resonated with.
And one last question before I let you go. We've got, obviously, we're living in a world now where so much content, it's a geek's dream, because we've got, you turn on Netflix, Hulu Original is showing Marvel stuff like Runaways. We've got all over the big screen, the biggest our box office hits are comic book movies. Obviously, in the back of your mind, even though you're still kind of launching this and it's new and it's great, that's got to be in the back of your mind, hey, maybe we'll get like an Umbrella Academy type Netflix series out of this. Is that in percolating? Have you cast Locke already?
Well, it's actually, we've been actually hard at work on this. We were actually optioned last year. So we've been actually having a lot of conversations here in Hollywood about sort of what the multimedia future of Spencer and Locke is going to be. And I've looked at a lot of, there's been a lot of cool combinations. I think you have to find two actors that kind of complement one another. I've been thinking about team-ups like Ryan Gosling and The Rock, or
there you go,
or Jake Gyllenhaal and Idris Elba, or Robert Pattinson and Jason Momoa. Those would be, I think all three of those would be tremendous team-ups. But that's the cool thing about being out here in Los Angeles, is you see the different spins that a film or a television adaptation will bring to your comic book work, similar to the way that Umbrella Academy on Netflix, which I've really enjoyed. It's a very different animal than the book. And I think that's the best of both worlds. I would not want a strict page-to-screen adaptation of our series, because all of our readers know the twists and turns already. Sure. I would much rather take sort of the Marvel Cinematic Universe approach, where we tell a story that will get everybody excited and keep everybody in suspense, but still remains true to the spirit of the characters. The last thing I would want is for someone to read Spencer and Locke or Spencer and Locke 2 and be immediately horrified at what they see. But I think that there are a lot of cool things that film and television can do that comics can't, and vice versa. And so it's been really exciting being a part of that process, even on the ground floor.
And if you want to catch up on Spencer and Locke, you can go to your local comic book store, which we always encourage you to support your local comic book store. Yep. Go buy the books. You can find Spencer and Locke there now. David Pepose, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a treat to talk to you, and we'll have to have you on the show for Volume 3 and maybe even when the series gets optioned.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you. There he goes. Spencer and Locke, you can find it at your local comic book stores. Make sure if they don't have it, that they order it, because that's what we want to do, is support people like this, these indie creations. We're going to take our first break, come right back talking with Chris McQuillen all about the upcoming ToyMan Toy Show. Stand by.
Sam Jones Flash Gordon, and you are listening to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. Talking now with a frequent guest of the show. We broadcast our show from his event multiple times. Chris McQuillen of ToyMan Toy Show. How are you today, sir?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. We know you've got another toy show coming up, which is always a never-to-be-missed thing for people who just like to catch up on their nostalgia and be like, oh, I had this, or people who actually just want to go in and buy the stuff and get their childhood back. Another show coming up on March 10th, I believe, yes?
Yes, March 10th is coming up. It'll be about 145 vendors, and about 250-plus tables.
And you always have guests at these things, which always makes it even more fun. What guests do we have lined up for our March 10th event?
So now we're kind of doing a horror and March Instead of doing one doing one for the holidays, for like Halloween being the Halloween time and the October time, we're doing bringing horror back. And it's a gentleman named Robert Mukes. He played Rufus from the House of 1,000 Corpses. He's been in some other movies, of course. But when, him being from House of 1,000 Corpses, he played the part of Rufus Firefly. And we have some other guests also. Bringing her, there'll be an author writer there also. Her name is Suzanne Landon. She is also bringing her counterpart that travels with her also. His name is Mr. Hanson, but he also dresses as Captain Spaulding, which is
yes.
Also from the House of 1,000 Corpses. And then we just added, and this was fairly quick, Miss Angie Fox. She's a best-selling author. She's been the best for New York Times and USA Today best-selling author. She's local and bringing a little bit more horror to the show also.
And I've got some of the pictures I pulled up. If you go to Facebook, facebook.com/ToyMan Show, you can see him dressed up in his glory there as Captain Spaulding, and it's definitely bringing the horror back. That's for sure. And you've got
it's something different. We want to give the guests that come to the show a little bit something different every show. And so we just with the show being 8 times a year, we can bring different authors. We can bring different actors. We can do voice actors, regular actors, authors of science fiction novels. So we try to give a variety to the people that come to the show.
It's always a good mix, and there's always so much. Like I said, that you've got the entire upstairs, which has a lot of people doing the crafts, and they've got unique things you're not going to be able to find if you're in that. They've got a woman who does like comic book embossed coffee table stuff, and it's really cool stuff like that. In addition to the toys and stuff you'd want to find, all the way back to we know Spike, who's been on the air with us before, does like toys from the 50s and 60s. You've got people doing modern stuff. You've got pops, so it's a little bit of everything. Something that anyone who goes is going to find something they want.
Yeah, and with the 2 floors, we used to be at about 190 to 200 plus tables, but with the upstairs, we're pushing it, like 250 plus. We're trying to get a large selection, and it's not so much that we're trying to just have a toy show, but it's toys and comics and more. I mean, it's just not just a toy show. You're going to find a little bit of everything there. Like you said, there's crafters that are doing pop culture stuff. From time to time, we have other crafters that do anything from hand sewing to wood burning. So you're going to get a lot of different things within the culture.
And there's, I want to mention the website too, ToyManShow.com. So maybe you can't make the one in March, but you've got, like you said, 8 each year. And you've been in the same place. You're right there at the Machinist Hall in Bridgeton, at 270 in the Rock Road, 12365 St. Charles Rock Road. And the hours are from, I think, 8 a.m. is for the early bird?
Yes.
And
8 a.m. The early bird is from 8 to 9, and that's $12. But then you have 9 till 3, and it's $5.
And like I said, you've been in that same space for so long, and you've gotten the Riverfront Times has given awards. You've gotten awards for this amazing toy show. So it's got to be, I guess, a bit of a challenge to keep kind of raising the bar each time, yes?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that me and my family started back in 1990, and we try to give something different. Like I said, anyone can go to a flea market or a toy show, and what we just try to give it more of a personal touch. But being at the same building for almost 30 years, because we've been doing it since 1990, we just try to make it a little bit different. Like I said, trying to keep vendors, keep fresh vendors in there, having different types of handcrafted items in there to keep stuff original. It's really hard to try to do that.
And there's a lot of the same vendors come back, so you might see something at one show and be like, oh, I'd love to get that. You don't have to worry about missing out, because a lot of times they'll bring stuff back. But the cool thing is also some of these same vendors bring back an entirely new assortment of stuff. So you might see something at one show you never saw at a previous show, too.
Oh, yes, definitely. We've had, and almost every one of our vendors also buy. So if you have something that you want to come and get appraised on, or you may want to sell, or you just want to see, get some history on it. Let's say you have something and you don't know much about what collectible you might have. Go ahead and bring it up. And like I said, there's 140 plus vendors, and some vendor, there may be 2 or 3 vendors in that same booth. So, you'll have definitely a broad spectrum on someone's idea. So someone said this worth $75, another person was it's $150, and you thought you were going to put it on Facebook or eBay for $25 or $30. You may want to think about that
right.
again.
And I know if someone is listening, they're like, well, I've got a bunch of stuff. I would like to just bring my collection and sell. You're pretty much booked up. I mean, you've got people on a waiting list for these tables. So is it the best thing if they want to do something like that, just talk to you at the show and see when they could possibly get in, add to the wait list?
Yeah. I mean, we have a wait list, but we also have we have vendors that cancel from time to time. You can get a hold of me, through the ToyManShow.com website. You can go to Facebook under ToyMan Show. You can go. You can contact me through my Gmail account, which is ToyManSTL@gmail.com. So you can find me in so many different levels through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram.
And I know if you're going to go to this, let's say you've never been before, I know people, you need to go check this out because I go in, I've gone to, I think, just about every show you've had since I've been old enough to go. And it's just so fun to see people walking out, big smiles on their faces, bagfuls of toys. And they're like, oh, I'm so excited. They're there with their kids buying things that, hey, I had this when I was a kid, and they're letting their kids now kind of get into this. So it's always a great time. And once again, the website, it will be the best place. Also, Facebook.com/Toyman Show, and that event is March 10th. So mark your calendars for that Sunday. Chris McQuillen, thanks so much for being on air with us. We love having you on.
No problem. Thanks for asking me to come on, but anytime, check us out.
Sounds good. Thanks so much. There he goes, Chris McQuillen from ToyMan Toy Show. Again, Facebook.com/Toyman Show. Check out the pictures right there and like the page. Keep updated on when the next show is. We're going to take our next break. We're going to come right back talking all things Oscars with Max on Movies. Stand by.
Hi, this is Sean Sipos. You know me from Krypton playing Adam Strange. Welcome to Geek to Me Radio.
We are back. I want to take this time to tell you about our premier sponsor, the City of St. Charles. Beautiful, historic St. Charles. The website that I want you to go visit to check it out is discoverstcharles.com. They've got great pictures up there of all the things there are to see and do, and there are plenty. They've got events coming up in May. They're celebrating their sesquicentennial. I actually pronounced that right. 250 years since the founding of St. Charles. They've got all sorts of events planned for that weekend. I think it's the weekend of the 16th through the 19th of May. If the previous festivals that they've done, like Legends and Lanterns and Christmas Traditions, are any indication, this one's going to be huge. A lot of fun. There'll be something for the entire family to do. It's a big event. 250 is a big one, obviously. Not many of us make it that far. City of St. Charles has been plugging along and doing incredibly well and celebrating this event. And there's other things. If you can't make it that weekend, there's always something going on. Heritage Day festivals. They've got the Tartan event going on, I think, in April. You can check out the website, discoverstcharles.com, to get information on all these events. If you've got a wedding coming up and you're in the area and you're like, oh, we need to get some really nice pictures, there's always photographers out there with people doing senior photos, with doing wedding photography. You're getting in your engagement photos. There's all sorts of different backgrounds and interesting things to have as your backdrop for your photo. It's all natural. It's right there. It's in our backyard. Historic Main Street is beautiful. You're out, you want to get at something to eat. There's great places to eat up and down North and South Main Street. Unique dining and shopping experiences we all talk about. I'm a Doctor Who guy, so I always tell you, go to the English shop, get your jammy Dodgers and jelly babies. But it's just, I can't emphasize enough what a beautiful place it is and how lucky we are to have it right here. If you're from outside the St. Louis, St. Charles area, come visit us. Charming bed and breakfast you can stay. Hotels with brand new modern amenities. The streets of St. Charles, they're constantly building over there. You could live there in the streets of St. Charles and have something to do every day of the week. It's a fantastic place, and please go to the website to check it out. For more information, discoverstcharles.com. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back, and we've got our Oscar ballots here in our hand. Max on Movies and I are going to talk about what we think the winners might be. Stand by.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Silent Bob. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio, man. This is the only radio show that the guy does Batman Beyond listens to for his geek news.
And that was very timely. We did just take a call from Kevin Smith. He says he thinks Black Panther is going to win Best Picture. He might be biased being a comic book guy, but we'll see. This Oscar segment brought to you by our other sponsor, Marcus Theaters. With locations in 11 different states, Marcus Theaters here in St. Louis, they took over the Wernberg chain, and they've done amazing renovations, especially at Ronnie's, at De Pere, at Chesterfield. Max and I both saw Alita Battle Angel, the gorgeous IMAX at Ronnie's. My goodness. I think that aids in my experience. When I'm seeing a movie in a fantastic surroundings, those big heated seats, and they've got the Dolby surround sound and the fantastic IMAX screen, it obviously is going to make you like the movie more. So if you want to see a movie and you want to like the movie, go see it at Marcus Theaters. They've got fantastic concessions. You can buy your tickets online, check out reviews and everything right there from the website. MarcusTheaters.com is the website, and hopefully you took advantage of their recent Oscar. They had the big weekend thing where you could go and see like 7 of the movies for like $35 and catch up. And so when you go to the Oscar party tonight, you're familiar with these movies and you can guess that. They do something like that every year. There's always events. They've got their throwback series. They've got the Disney Princess series, the rom-com series. You can get tickets for all these things. Check out what they have upcoming. Enter contests right there on the website. MarcusTheaters.com is that website. We appreciate them being a sponsor of Geek to Me Radio. Max on Movies. How are you, sir?
It's my day, James.
It's your day.
I'm pretty excited about this. I get excited about it every single year, and shameless plug, everybody should not only follow you on Twitter at Geek to Me Radio, but please follow me at Max on Movies, because I will be doing my annual duties of neglecting my family and live tweeting the Academy Awards from the red carpet all the way until the very last commercial, and it is incessant tweeting. It's a whole lot of fun. I always get a whole lot of new followers, and people make dumb jokes, and it's just a lot of fun. All of Film Twitter will be live tweeting tonight, so just add me to that list whenever you're looking at your hashtags tonight, because it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Plus, my son, Oscar, who is not named after the awards ceremony, although people think so, he's actually under the weather tonight. So I'm going to be an even better dad, letting my wife take care of him while I live tweet the Oscars.
Exactly.
Because priorities.
Yeah, you don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen. Let your wife take care of them. Otherwise, you're competing with advice. No, give him a cold compress.
Exactly.
No, give him aspirin. You don't want that.
Of course not.
You're putting the kids' needs first.
Right. Yes, that's a great and skewed way to look at it. Yes.
I don't have children, you can tell. That's all right. We do want to, I'm starting out by saying, what do you think about this controversy? I know they've cut some of the live presentations for costuming, and it's raised quite a hubbub among the acting community.
Well, the Oscars have reversed pretty much every bad decision that they made this year. They got off on the wrong foot because there was a chance that Laura Dern was going to be the new Academy president, and they decided, no, we'll have the voting next year, and so that didn't happen. I hope it happens next year, because having Vice Admiral Holdo as the head of the Academy would be amazing. So hopefully they right that ship next year. But they initially said they were going to have a new category for Best Popular Film. People didn't like that, and so that went away. And they also said they were going to be giving cinematography, editing, costume design during the commercial breaks. Coincidentally, people pointed out that ABC, who's owned by Disney, who was airing the Oscars, didn't have any movies nominated during those awards, so they reversed that as well, and everything will air today live, which is fantastic. They also said early on that only 2 of the original songs would be performed. They always perform all of the nominated songs, and with this year, when you have a song from Mary Poppins Returns, when you have a song from Black Panther, when you have Shallow from A Star Is Born, it made no sense not to air those, so they reversed that, and we're going to get all of the songs as well. So the only thing they did not relent on was the lack of a host. They originally had asked Kevin Hart. Twitter freaked out about that, for better or worse. Kevin Hart removed himself from the conversation. Later on, quite strangely, in a tweet to my good friend Dan Buffa, The Rock said that he was the first choice from the Academy. That's a little strange, seeing as how he's co-starring with Kevin Hart in the next Jumanji movie. I wonder if Kevin Hart called him and said, "Hey, man, why are you saying you were the first choice?" That's a little strange, but good for them. So this will be the first time since the
89, isn't it?
89 that and that was a disaster of a broadcast.
Yes.
I hope that we don't have another disaster tonight, but apparently there's no host.
That'll be interesting to see. So now that they've added everything back in, I think a lot of people are going to go ahead and tune in after, because a lot of people were saying they weren't going to watch because of the cinematography and the costuming and everything like that being left out. So we'll see how this goes. It might be a repeat of the 30-year-long go in between disasters. We'll see.
I don't know. I mean, the last time I think we had an actual disaster was when James Franco decided not to host the Oscars. I mean, Anne Hathaway, God love her, tried her best, and she just had no help at all from Franco. And I don't know what was going on there behind the scenes. The best host in recent memory, I think, was Hugh Jackman, who of course can do everything. But that opening monologue was great. His song was great. He brought up Anne Hathaway and sung with him. And of course, when he ended his song by saying, "How come comic book movies never get nominated?"
Right.
Ending with "I'm Wolverine," we're getting some wonderful closure here with Black Panther being nominated for Best Picture. I could obviously do an hour with you, James. We don't have an hour here, but I did want to bring up just really quickly 3 of the major snubs. Every year there's always movies that do not get nominated. The 3 that jumped out to me in the Best Documentary Feature, it blows my mind and makes no sense that Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is the Fred Rogers documentary, which is one of the best movies, documentary or not.
Everyone loved it.
It's an amazing movie. It will make you cry if you watch it, and it did not make the shortlist. That boggles my mind. There was a horror film that I didn't care for called Hereditary last year, but I think Toni Collette gave one of the best performances of any actor I've seen in the last decade, and the fact that she didn't get nominated for an actress in a leading role boggles my mind. And then finally, this one's a bit esoteric, but I love film scores, as you may know, and Justin Hurwitz's score for First Man was transcendent, and I don't know how that didn't get nominated. Those are the 3 this year that kind of boggled my mind.
And a lot of people talking about Bradley Cooper not getting Best Director nominated was a bit of a snub, too, that they thought was odd.
Given the fact that this year is the first year that Spike Lee's been nominated for Best Director, after all the amazing films he's given us, like Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X, and even smaller films like Girl 6 that I've really enjoyed, the fact that BlacKkKlansman gives him his first nomination, that makes me think, let's let Bradley Cooper get 20 years of filmmaking under his belt before we start showering him with awards.
Sure,
I'm fine with that.
So since let's start with Best Picture. What do you got for that one?
There are 2 front runners here out of these pictures, and I'm going to go with my gut. I think that Black Panther is going to win tonight, and I know.
Really?
Well, your reaction is what I get from a lot of people when I say that, but I think you're never going to have a comic book film that is going to resonate and be as culturally impactful, arguably, as this one. And I think that the majority of your voters for Best Picture are producers, and I think the producers in this industry really respect what Kevin Feige has been able to do over the past decade with Marvel Comics. And we can't forget that they gave a similar award, Best Picture, to the 3rd Lord of the Rings movie, Return of the King. And they did that because they really respected what New Line and Peter Jackson had done with these fantasy movies. So we have precedents for this. The other front runner, the one that I am hopeful wins tonight, but I think it's a little too politically challenging, is Roma. And the reason why I say that is because if Netflix wins Best Picture at the Academy, it changes the landscape of filmmaking going forward. And I don't know if the Academy is ready to do that. But I certainly would be happy if Roma won. I just think it's politically, I don't think people really want Netflix to have that much power. They would become the new Miramax. They would become, and that's what happened when Shakespeare in Love won. And it changed. I mean, independent films got a huge push. We already have huge directors like the Coen brothers and Scorsese going to Netflix, but that really changes the whole industry. So that's why I think they're going to give it to Black Panther.
Well, this year I kind of did ones because my heart wants it, and then my head knows what probably might win. So obviously my heart would love to see Black Panther win this. In my head, I was kind of giving it to Bohemian Rhapsody just because it's gotten so much momentum through the Golden Globes and all the other award shows that have preceded the Oscars. I kind of go by that as a bit of a playbook for what might be. It kind of foreshadows a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to disagree there because the people who vote for the Hollywood Foreign Press do not vote in the Academy, and usually you don't have a lot of crossover between the Golden Globes and the Academy. So I don't think that would happen. I think you'll be happy tonight if Black Panther wins. I will be ecstatic. What about director? What do you think? I think that Spike Lee's nomination is his award. I think this goes to Alfonso Cuarón for Roma, deservingly so. It's an incredible film, and he was just a shameless plug here. He was just a guest on the Max on Movie Show. Ooh, yeah. I think because that's what Brett Hoffman from Marcus Theaters also felt Alfonso would win that as well. Obviously, again, I'd love to see Spike Lee win just because my heart would love to see that. But brain-wise, I think I'm going to have to agree with you on that one, and I think he gets it for Roma. Absolutely. And how about let's take a break.
Burn through them. Let's just burn through them real quick. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go with next actress in a leading role.
It's Glenn Close. That's a lock. She's won almost everything, including the Independent Spirit Awards last night. It's an absolute lock.
I would have to agree with my head, says Glenn Close. My heart would like to see Olivia Colman because I'm a fan of hers from the Broadchurch days. Tremendous actress, and I would just love to see her win that.
She won the BAFTA, so she's fine.
Yeah. Actor in a leading role.
I've gone back and forth on this. I just did a hit in Kansas City yesterday for a different radio program, and I switched. I was saying Rami Malek this whole time for Bohemian Rhapsody, but then yesterday I switched it over to Christian Bale because he's amazing in Vice. And then just when I was filling this out before your Geek to Me show, I went back to Rami Malek. It's really a two-person race. I don't know who it'll be. I'm going to guess Rami.
I'm thinking, again, the way my brain works, I was wondering if Bradley Cooper might not be the dark horse and end up getting this because he was kind of, air quotes, snubbed for director. They might say, yeah, you know what? You did a great job in this, though, director, everything. We'll go ahead and give him the actor in a leading role. We've seen this kind of happen before where, look at all the stuff Scorsese did, and they give him his Oscar for Departed, which was not his best film. So who knows? I can see that as a bit of a dark horse thing. Actress in supporting role.
I think this one goes to Regina King. This is her best role in ages. She's been beloved by her fellow actors for a long time. I mean, I don't think Emma Stone has a chance. She just won, Best Actress a year ago. I don't think. Amy Adams is the new Susan Lucci. She's the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. I think that she'll have a couple more nominations. So I'm going to go Regina King.
Actor in supporting role. I had a hard time between Mahershala Ali for Green Book and Sam Rockwell for Vice.
You know, Mahershala Ali is the fan favorite, and I would not be surprised if he won this. I was so pleased to see Sam Elliott get a nom for Star is Born. That would make me very happy, but I think his nomination is his award. I'm going to go with Richard E. Grant for Can You Ever Forgive Me?
And real quick, before we wrap it up here, original screenplay, what do you think?
This one is one where I will vote for with my heart and not my brain. I really love the movie First Reformed, which is a Paul Schrader film, very challenging film, one of my top 10 of last year, and I went ahead and put an X on that because I would love to see that win. Also, right before we take a break, we should talk about animated feature. Don't you think it's a lock for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
I certainly hope so.
What a dynamic animated feature. I mean, that one has to win.
Groundbreaking, especially. And I know Stan Lee will be smiling down if that one wins, and Black Panther wins too, so hopefully so. We're going to take a break, come right back and wrap it up on Geek to Me Radio. Stand by. We are back, wrapping it up. I wanted to say thanks again to all my guests, David Pepose of Spencer and Locke, Chris McQuillen, ToyMan Toy Show, Max Foisey from Max on Movies. I do want to say, if you're listening to the show and you want to support the show, go to geektomeradio.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe on YouTube, hit the Patreon link, and help support the show in that way. And obviously support my sponsors. Discover stcharles.com and marcustheaters.com. Back next week with an awesome interview with John Glover. So until then, my friends.
It's not in the way you watch iZombie. It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young Art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's our show. This is Geek to Me Radio.
Thank you, Sunset Strip. Good night.